Hello, everybody. My name is Nathan Muckler. I'm the Vice President of the Video Game Development Club at NC State. You're about to watch a great video from Jacob Stone, who is a gameplay programmer at Epic Games. So if you're interested in doing gameplay programming, this is a great video for you. There's a lot of awesome, useful information in there. I appreciate you guys checking us out and enjoy.
Hello. Like you said before, my name is Jacob Stone. I went to NC State and graduated in 2017, and I was a part of this club. Let me first say that it is so great to see this club thriving. It was very small when I joined, like 5 people small, and I'm just floored that it's continued to grow and continue to put people in the industry and be a great resource for the students and everything. A little bit more about myself. I went to a community college, Rockham Community College, where I got my associates. Transferred to state. Got a computer science degree with a major, or the game concentration. I don't know if it's a minor. I think it's just, yeah, anyways. From there, I got an internship at Bethesda Game Studios after I graduated for 6 months. No, that was after I graduated. And there I worked on Fallout 76, doing various audio miscellaneous tasks. From there, I got a full-time role at Red Storm Entertainment in Cary as a UI programmer on the Division 2. And then for a few years, I worked as a game systems programmer on the Division Heartland that was sadly canceled like 3 months ago. A lot of work that will never see the light of day. But while I was there on that project, I worked on the new Quest system and the new XP system. And then about a year and a half ago, I transferred over to Epic Games to be a gameplay programmer on their BR team. And it's been a wild ride so far, but real great. So, okay, who is this talk for? This talk is for those who are trying to enter AAA as a programmer. Why am I so specific? It's because this is really the only experience I have. I don't really have insight on how to get in as an artist or a designer or any of the other related fields. Even as like a programmer for AA or indie could be completely different than the advice I give here. So just take it with a grain of salt. Hopefully it's useful for everybody in some way, but just know that this is my experience for the big companies, the big, massive project type things. All right. So, like many people, I have imposter syndrome. I've had it for as long as I can remember. I've had it for the entire 7 years I've been in the industry. Most of the time, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. Even so much so that when I thought about giving this talk, it's like, what do I even have to say or contribute that could be useful? But it's people like my friend Kevin Boggs, who is at Epic and was at Red Storm.
He passed away.
No, we just had black and white. He's still alive. He actually. That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna show him this video if it's being recorded. Kevin reminded me that with the industry right now and the downturn, and even before that, it's a small industry and it's hard to get into. So like anything that I can give back or anyone can give back, we should do it. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. I'm going to try to say things that maybe I wish I heard when I was in school, or things that I wish someone had told me that it's okay to do these things. Maybe you know these things already. Hopefully they'll be useful in some way. So let's get started. The very first piece of advice is the most obvious advice I could ever give, and that's make games. If you want to get into a game company, you gotta make games. These are some screenshots of the games I made while I was in school, and maybe a little afterwards as well. One of them is a board game, the white screenshot that I designed with quarters in Lee Hall, later made in C++ and SFML. And then later ported to Godot to add multiplayer. Down below is an arcade game I made that was initially in Unity, and then I later ported it. It was still in Unity, but I ported it to Android to make it a mobile game. Then the other Nintendo 64 type game here was made in my own engine using OpenGL and as little libraries as possible um, to just learn the low level stuff. So the things I want to say about these games is, first and foremost, they're small and complete. You don't have to make a giant open world, high fidelity, super impressive thing to impress these companies. It's okay to make things small. In fact, I encourage it. Make it so small that you can actually finish it. And all these projects, I aggressively cut things I wanted to add, but I wanted to finish them and put them on my portfolio even more. So each of these were either a month to 3 months in work. I think at least 2 were just over the summer while I was doing other internships. But they were still impressive to these companies. So I encourage you to don't overscope. It's okay to make small games. I encourage you to make small games. The other thing I noticed that all of these are in different engines. As a programmer, I think it's important to get a depth of the types of engines that are out there and making your own to see how the same problem is solved in different ways or the way that you would solve it. I think it's important to just get that breadth of experience. Not all game companies use the same engine. A lot of them use Unreal nowadays, but also a lot of them use their own proprietary stuff that you will have never seen before, and you cannot Google. That's the best thing about working at Epic so far is I can actually Google stuff now. Alrighty. The other thing that no one likes, not even me, but it's very important, is networking. I was there with you. I had sweaty palms at ECGC talking to the recruiter at Insomniac or the programmer at Epic. And the main thing I just want to say is all you can really do is just be a good human, be a good person, and put yourself in those positions, and just hope for the best because a lot of it is honestly luck. But the luck won't happen if you don't put yourself in those positions. This is a photo of me, probably 2015, at Epic's HQ. I think we were playtesting the Unreal Tournament, newest Unreal Tournament. And how I got here was I had a friend from my community college, Jess, that went to UNCW for computer science, and I went to state, but we kept in touch. And she had a professor, Dr. Patterson, that would take their classes to ECGC every year and get them on tours with Redstorm and Epic in the area because he just was awesome and had a bunch of connections. I think he worked at Redstorm at one point. Anyways, because I knew Jess, she got me on these tours for a school I wasn't a part of, and I got to go into these studios and meet people. I didn't make any meaningful relationships with the workers at these places, but the guy behind me back there, Kevin Boggs, the guy I mentioned before. We didn't really talk much on these tours, but later I met Kevin again at a holiday party because he dated my friend Jess for a brief time, and we just hit it off there. Once I met him at the holiday party, he's a bit older than me. He already had a full-time role at Redstorm. I never asked him of anything like, can you give me a job, those type of things. We just were friendly. I think we talked about Titanfall 2 for the most part, and we just became good friends. We played games afterwards, and we just stayed in touch. And fast forward 3 or so years later, my internship at Bethesda is ending, and it's clear that they're not going to hire me. So I need to find another job. And I reached out to Kevin, and he put a referral for me in Redstorm, and the rest is history. So that is a completely organic form of networking that, admittedly has a lot of luck and a lot of right place at the right time. What if I didn't go to that holiday party or whatever? But it's important nonetheless. And then the Video Game Development Club, I realize the logo's updated now. This is intentionally the logo one. I won't. This is such a great community, but from my cohort and cohort afterwards, so many people got into the industry, and we have all given each other recommendations and can actually attest to the skills of these people, and it's great natural networking, and I really encourage being part of this club and being friendly and go to those GDC trips. And I'm really jealous of that. I still haven't been to GDC. It's expensive. Um, one day. Yeah, so networking, don't forget about it. I know it's awkward. I know it's annoying. I wish it wasn't that way, but it kind of is. All right. More of the programming type advice. Focus on the low level. When I was at State, it was, I'm sure it is mostly still a Java school, but even the games concentration was like all Java. The game engine class was in Java, the game AI class was in Java, and I think the graphics class was in WebGL. And it's all fine and dandy and great, and I learned a lot of stuff in there. But I noticed when trying to apply to these big AAA companies, they wanted, C++. They didn't even want like Unreal C++. Most of them didn't use Unreal. Their tests and stuff I was getting would be in just normal C++. Um, so I had to get all that experience on my own. I just did it on the side. I did it nights and weekends when I was doing internships outside of school hours, and I have more recommendations, which what's on screen here. Feel free to reach out to me on like LinkedIn, and I'll give you everything I have. Let's see, these are just some of the highlights. That big C is the Cherno, which is a game engine building YouTube channel. He has a fantastic playlist on C++ that he made years ago. That's just a great tutorial. It's not made for beginner programmers, so he's not going to start be like, this is a for loop. He'll be like, this is how your compiler works, and that helped me in many interviews and programming tests. LearnOpenGL.com, that is where I learned a lot of my graphics programming. Super cool resource. I think that's also a book now. I think they turned it into a book. Game Engine Architecture, that was the textbook when I was in the Games Engines class, and that is a fantastic book. Some people in the industry will say that like it's too broad to like, if you're going to try to build your own engine off of it or something, like it doesn't go in depth enough. But as just a resource for, interviews and just getting your feet wet and everything, it's amazing. It has a great 3D math chapter, a great like refreshing C++ chapter. I particularly like the parallel programming chapter. That was fun. I think that's in the new edition. It's a great book. Then the classic books like Effective C++ and Effective Modern C++. Learn everything from like move semantics and smart pointers, all that good stuff. And SFML, that's like a library to help do the hard stuff in C++ while you're learning how to do logic and gameplay and all the other stuff about C++. All right. Nothing on here other than focus on 3D math. 3D math is used everywhere in the industry, especially programmers. Some disciplines more than others, like gameplay programmers use it more than maybe someone in UI or something. But I guess the thing I would just say on this is like, 3D math is dot products, cross products, matrices, vectors, projections, all that good stuff. Is think of it like a tool, and the same way that if you have a programming problem and you like reach for a for loop, you should be able to like look at a problem and like reach for a dot product if it's like a problem in 3D. Just like that natural reach for that tool type level would be great to have. Okay, maybe some controversial, maybe that's the wrong word, advice, but picking job categories. I said technically I started in audio, but my first full-time role was in UI. I always wanted to be a gameplay programmer, but that's not what I started in. I started in UI, and I had like a top list of jobs that I would be okay with, as long as it was on the screen and like the player could see or interact with it, or it was a part of the simulation. I was pretty happy. So I think my top categories were like gameplay, then game systems, then UI. Difference between gameplay and game systems. Gameplay, think of like Kratos throwing the axe and it like doing damage and it coming back. Game systems, think of like a quest system or XP or a battle pass. But anyways, when I was looking for full-time roles, I noticed that there was a lot less gameplay programmer roles than there were for like UI or other things. And when looking at Redstorm, the only programming job they had was UI. But that was part of my categories, and that was something I was okay with. So I applied for that, and it took 5 years, but eventually I got into gameplay. So this is all to say it's like a balancing act. If these different roles could be your foot in the door, and it doesn't always mean you're going to be that. You can always change. And it's just something to keep in mind. Now, you may be the kind of person that like you really love graphics programming, and you like there's nothing else will satisfy you, and you'll even go to a non-gaming company like Apple or something just to do it, and that's totally fine. That's awesome passion. But if you're not that way, there are other alternatives, and just keep that in mind. Some jobs are more, what's the word, competitive than others. So one of the reasons why I didn't go for design initially, I mean, when I first started out going to school, I'm like, I'm going to be a game designer. And I'm like, well, everybody wants to be a game designer. I'm going to try to do the thing that no one in like my high school ever wants to do. They always want to be the idea guy, but no one ever wants to actually make the thing. So I'm going to be the guy that makes the thing. All right. So again, like my journey through the industry that I showed before, I think it's very important to note that this is not the whole story for my career. Before this, I was a TA at NC State. I was a researcher in games at NC State. I was an ambassador at NC State. I was a tutor. I did a lot of things at NC State. And my first internships had nothing to do with games. My first was Blackbot. Awesome company, by the way. If I ever got out of the industry, I'd probably be back there. They were fantastic to me. Then I went to Optum, which is like the IT division of United Healthcare. And then when I graduated, I went to Bethesda. But all this experience was relevant. Like half the stuff we talked about in the Bethesda interview was like the previous programming stuff I did at these companies. I get, for me, when I was in school, there was like a stigma that I put on myself that if I didn't get a game internship or a game job, I was kind of like a failure. And that is like so far from the truth. And I just didn't realize it at the time. I would much rather you get out of NC State with some experience than none at all, because all the game jobs are like super competitive. I know plenty of people who didn't get game jobs right off the bat and they got in later. Sometimes it just happens that way. So don't, for all means, like prioritize those game jobs and those game internships. But don't forget about the other things. Apply to them too. Optum was that summer, that was the only company that bit all my game internships and stuff didn't work out, so I went there. And I made, I think, the board game in C++ when I was coming home that summer. And I think I ported the Spider game that summer too. So yeah, keep that in mind. What next? Oh, where are we at the end? So just some final thoughts that I was like, what else could I say? Did I just kind of put on here? That I could like think of that might be good advice. The first is take a networking class. I did not take a networking class. I had the opportunity to. I think when I was going to state, networking was just an elective. And I had the opportunity to take it my last semester, but I was so tired of school and I was burnt out, and I really just wanted to do 12 credit hours. And my roommate at the time, I mean, he wasn't wrong, but he said, if you really want to learn something, you don't need a class to do it. You can just do it, just learn it. And that's totally true. That's what I did. At the same time, as soon as you get out of school, things get busy. I mean, for me, you get a job that's 8 hours a day. You get married. I have a 2-year-old, by the way, and your free time just like dwindles. So that time to actually put in the work to learn something and fail over and over again until you know it, it dwindles. You can do it, but it might get harder. So I would have appreciated that structure of a networking class, and I think it would have benefited me. Why networking in particular? AAA companies, vast majority are doing multiplayer games now. I mostly played and still mostly play single player games, but even when I was sure that I was going to go to Bethesda to work on the next great open world single player RPG. At the time, I thought it would be Elder Scrolls 6 because in 2018 they had not announced Starfield or 76. And when I got there, I worked on a massively multiplayer Fallout game, so I had to learn that network game stuff anyways. So maybe take a shortcut and take a networking class. All right, you don't have to build your website or portfolio from scratch. When I was in school, every computer science student was building their own website for their portfolio to be a portfolio piece, because why wouldn't you? That like shows you know how to program. For me, back to the job categories thing, I never really wanted to be a web programmer. Even when outside of games, I was more of a backend guy. Like when I was at Blackpot, I did like SQL indexing stuff, because that's where I want to be. So for me, all I really wanted to do is just show my games to game companies, and I didn't want to have to spend 3 months building a website. So that's what I did. I made a Weebly, and it is a Weebly to this day. So there might be a stigma, but there's definitely one for me where I felt pressure to build my website like everybody else. But you don't have to do that. Now, if one of your categories is you want to be a web programmer, by all means, like that's great experience, do it. But if you're like me, you can save some time. Last thing, I think the best thing I learned out of my Bethesda internship that maybe you can learn a little sooner than I did is just learning to navigate code you don't understand. These game projects at these companies are massive, monolithic things that are very confusing, especially when you jump in and you have no experience. And the best thing to do, I've found every time I go to a new company or learn a new system, is just put a breakpoint in and just go down the call stack, take 30, however long it takes, and just see where everything goes, and learn it that way. And there are tools to help navigate these giant code bases I didn't know about until I graduated. Granted, most of these are just like specifically for Visual Studio. I know like Rider's becoming very popular, so maybe that's what you guys are using. And I think they have these things built into them. But Visual Studio by default doesn't have the best tools in terms of these plugins. But for example, just a universal thing that helped is data breakpoints. There's breakpoints that you put it on a piece of memory, and then it will only breakpoint when that memory changes. So it's great for finding like when does this pointer, who nulls out this pointer, or when does this variable change, and then it'll breakpoint. You can see the call stack exactly. Oh, it's like this piece of UI did this. Great for learning new systems. Entrance source search. This is a plugin for Visual Studio that indexes your entire code base, not just your code base, like data files too. And it is amazingly fast. I think it's Alt 11. If you highlight a sentence or a symbol, you hit Alt 11, it'll show you everywhere it's used, like instantly. And it's very great for seeing like where everything's used or how it's structured, and makes it super fast. And again, it's for like data files. I use this a lot in Snowdrop when they're like, where does this one string come from? And 5 seconds later, I'm like, oh, it's right here, designer. Visual Assist, similar tools, has it's basically the same thing, but it is high level and can do things like show you all the child classes in a dependency, or it's very fast to find, runs through files or browse through symbols specifically and go where they're defined, and yada yada. They're great tools to help you navigate these giant systems. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you guys.